Caribbean. We're going to be delivering services, products to our customers that meet and exceed their expectations. We're going to be developing our employees, and we're going to be contributing to the economies in which we operate. Now you'll notice our footprint that we're in Jamaica, we're in Cayman, we're in Barbados, we're in Trinidad, and we just welcome Clarion to our group, and Minish is here from Clarion, so that's one of our newest acquisitions. Now some of the things that would drive us in our daily operations would be the question of innovation. How do we push the boundaries? How do we keep going, adding? Because we can never stand still. There's also the question of expertise, not just internal but external, and this is where we look at the question of partnerships, because we do not have the capability to do everything in-house, but we work with those who have the skills, the technology, the expertise that we need to get to our end goal. And strength, NCB continues to perform well, and this provides a basis for us to innovate, the basis for us to build, to acquire, to train as we need to go along. Now there are three things that we focus on from a strategic perspective. And you hear us talk about raising the bar. That's on the right-hand side of the screen. So it's building a world-class digital experience. Now that experience is not only for the customer, it's also for the employees, because you'll hear us talk about at NCB digital lipstick. So the customer is happy in a digital world, and in the back end we're running like Flintstone in those little cars, right? That is not what we're building. It's an end-to-end process where we're digital from the core to the customer experience. Accelerating our regional expansion, and this has to do with the expansion in terms of acquisitions, mergers, partnerships as we go across the Caribbean. Reinventing our core business. It's clear that how we've done business, and many of you will probably have the same experience over the years, is not able to take us into a digital world. So if you fail to re-engineer, then you face the consequences. When we started our digital journey, one of the things we spoke about and one of the mantras we had was disrupt yourself or be disrupted. Because that is what drove us, that even if we don't do it, somebody else will do it on our behalf. All of you would have had some of these problems to different extent. The processing time for transactions for customers, the handoffs that we have, lack of accountability, nobody is responsible for anything, reporting, process tracking, expensive processes. So we know this list, right? So we all went there. So the question was, can we solve them? Can we solve all of them? Can we improve them? When do we stop working on them? When we started our journey with Newgen, and you'll notice I was looking at it that we didn't do anything in 2016. So I'm trying to figure, Ashish, what happened in 2016? Is it that I didn't buy anything or you didn't sell me anything? I'm not sure which one it is, but there's nothing in 2016, right? But we started in 2012 with consumer loans and credit card. We added our collection management system. We have Quick onboarding, a mobile app which they helped us with. Our merchants in our card acquiring business, the sales reps, they do that on an app from Newgen. Credit card onboarding. Corporate loans we have in a flavor of, but we're going to be enhancing that. Inward Swift processing, the regulatory compliance, that's our legal department to meet some of the challenges that they have. Know your employee, that's also a regulatory requirement. FATCA, they do for us. Or cap markets, the mobile app or insurance claims processing, they're also doing that. And when I look at this, I'm saying probably I've reached our limit with Newgen, right? We shouldn't be buying anything else. There's no space on the slide to buy anything else, right? But the good news is that today we went live at Clarion with onboarding for customers. So there's something in 2018. And we have a few other products that we are working on that will go live this year. Why did we go through this transformation? Customers' expectations are changing. And we make the mistake of thinking it's only the young. And I always say my mother is now 84. So she's online, she's using her iPad. I remember when I bought her first laptop about 5-6 years ago, she didn't know the difference between a username and a password. I went there now and she's a pro. She doesn't even want you to help her with certain things anymore, right? So it's not just for the young. All the customers can benefit from it and their expectations are changing. Margin compression, the increased competition that we get. A few years ago, fintechs, that was a big thing. Now we have a lot of bigger companies that have gone into digitization. Companies that were previously technology companies, they are now financial companies. So it's just a very dynamic space with a lot of changes. And I think the business case was very clear. We took this approach to the principles that we would look at in doing the transformation. Make it simple. Because when somebody is going online, one of the most frustrating things you can have is to go online and it doesn't work. And I'm one of those, if it doesn't work, I'm not coming back, right? My mother, as I say, she can do almost anything she wants now, or mobile banking, everything. So it has to have that inbuilt ability for the simplest of customer to do it without any problem. Personable. You must feel like it is geared towards you. You don't want to feel like you're part of this mass company and it's just thrown out there and you use it if it fits you. No. When I go on, it must be for me. So it meets my need. And every customer, you yourself, intuitively, when you go onto a bank, you're not concerned about the person beside you. It's what it does for me. Value-driven. It's not just a case of being digital. There must be some value to the customer. What's the value proposition that you're putting out there? So the customer must have a benefit from doing it. And there are different value drivers. Omni-channel approach. Now this is central to what we're building. So that a customer calls to our call center, or they go to one of our kiosks, or they go to a branch. The experience should be the same. It shouldn't be a good experience in the branch and a bad one online. It must be consistent. And also, if I choose to start a transaction in the branch and I go home, I should be able to continue the transaction. And also, if I start a transaction online and I have a problem and I have to call the customer service area, they should not come to me and say, what's your name again? What you're doing again? And if I go to somebody else in the branch, they should be able to see exactly where I am at any time. So that's an overarching philosophy that we're driving out in the omni-channel approach. I should also be able to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and do the transaction that I want. So if I go online and I see a deal, I should be able to apply for a loan, have it funded, and do the transaction and go back to sleep before my wife is awake, right? Many times we look at the transformation and we try to fit in one of those 3 buckets. I want to suggest we must do all 3, and that's the approach we're taking. So that we have to have a new business model. The model we grew up on in a manual world cannot survive in a digital world. So we have to look at the way customers want to interact with us. We have to serve them differently. We have to change how we put the products in their hands, how it becomes available to them. How they use those products, that's going to be different. We also have to protect ourselves from disruptions that will come, so we have to be agile in our approach. There must be the operational improvements as well. How to reduce the time, the transaction processing costs, speed up our internal processing. It's very annoying when you deposit something at a branch on Monday. You need it for Wednesday. and on Friday they tell you it's at head office, right? You have to be able to change the entire process, faster decision making in matters of minutes, sometimes it's automated. We have to create transparency because sometimes you don't know where it is in the process. We ourselves will spend hours previously trying to find where a transaction was. So it was with Ann, then it's with Valana, then it's with Bob. We don't need that. That's part of the operational improvement that you have to go through. Customer experience optimization. What is the customer feeling when they interact with you on whatever channel? That has to be improved as well. Because unfortunately, with the advent of the Amazons, etc., customers are now judging their experience online based on what they have on those channels. So if we cannot match them, we have a problem. Because previously they would expect a bank to take 3 days to do something. But when they go online and it happens immediately, they then say, if I go online at a bank, why isn't it happening same time? Brand differentiation online, all of those are key things that you must have in your customer optimization strategy. Now I'm going to say that digitization is not only or predominantly about technology. Because that's a mistake that many persons make to say, let's buy the technical equipment and we become digital. Wrong. Now we have listed 5 things that we believe you must undertake, and you may have others, if you are going to be truly digital. So there has to be the lean transformation. And when we went through our lean exercise, and we coined what we call CCAPs, where we had that everybody in the organization should know CCAPs. It's centralization, consolidation, automation, paperless, straight-through processing. So every new process, every existing process was to be tested against CCAPs. If it didn't meet CCAPs, it was wrong. Go back and look at it. And Ann over there led our lean initiative, so you can talk to her in the break to find out some of the things that we did. But that is a key part of your digital strategy, because if you automate a process that's inefficient, what we say, automation glorifies inefficiency. So if it's inefficient manually and you automate it, all you have is automated inefficiency. So we had to go through the CCAPS process. I'm going to go to people because I think I have slides on the other 3. It is critical that you invest in the right skills, the right people, and de-invest in the wrong ones. I'm not telling you to find a body, all right? What you need to do is those that are trainable, retrain them. It's an investment. If you don't have the people to do this, it's not going to work. They have to have the right mindsets. So you have to go through the process of telling them this is where we're going, work with them. Because the first thing people talk about with digitization, am I going to lose my job? Our answer is there will be changes. But you have the opportunity to learn new things and to become employable. So it's no longer a question of being where I am today, but looking at where we're going, how can I reskill myself, re-equip myself to fit into a digital world. So never lose sight of the people component. We started our Agile journey in 2014, but in essence we went at scale in 2017. Now, one of the things that we have done, we have set up some digital labs, and we have been working in an agile manner. We adopted Scrum as a methodology that we would use. And we're now delivering products at a much faster rate. Now, some of the things that we did in Waterfall, we have looked at, we're now moving in an agile manner. Things like MVP and all of those new terms, it works. So NCBA has adopted that. And what we have found is that the staff members, the organization, they see where it is going, they understand the value, and once there's success, they are willing to go with you. We looked at our account opening process in the first lab, and we're able to reduce the account opening time by 60 to 70% in the first iteration. And we're going to improve on that going forward. All right? We look at loans, for example. We now have a lab working on loans. So for unsecured loans, we recently had a discussion where a customer came into the bank, went to CSR, and while she was there, the loan was assessed, entered, approved, and her account credited. And I hear she screamed out in the bank because she did not expect that. So that's a type of mindset and delivery that you're now thinking of on the agile world. Agility is not only for IT, it must be for the entire organization. So I now have to understand, how do I make software changes quickly? Yes. But how do I make risk decisions quickly? How do I interact with the legal department and have those decisions quickly? How do I interact with the regulators? Because that's new as well for them. And then how do I interact with my vendors? Because one of the things we found was that we were pushing along a path, but our vendors were not there. So when you say I want this in 1 day, they say, no, my SLA is 15 days. SLA is a thing of the past if you're going to be digital. It has to be a part of the chain where agility comes. So you go figure it. That's why you need to say to them, I'm spending my money, you go figure it, I need it in a day. So we have to drive that kind of mindset. And that's why we have what we call strategic partners now in a lot of cases instead of vendors. Because the vendor is not operating at the level that we want them to operate. EIM, Enterprise Information Management. Data is key to your digital journey. We all have data in our institutions, but it is sitting in an application. We don't know what is there. We don't know how to use it. We don't know what it says. And then we may decide it's not 100% accurate, so we don't use it. In your EIM program, you have to get to the right-hand side where you're doing and getting superior insight from the data you have in-house, but also recognizing that you can add data from external sources. Now, it's that combination of data, internal, external, and how you use it that drives the insight that you need for a digital program. And it may take some money, but it's an investment that's worth it. Because the value you get from data, sometimes even the customer does not understand the things that they're doing. And you have the ability to be proactive, to understand, to build on it, and to create value. This is referred to in NCB as my house, right? And they want me to change it. But it explains exactly what your core technology should look like and how you build it out for a digital journey. Because at the top we have what we call the presentation layer, as you have been hearing about. This is where the customer interacts with the organization. You have your integration layer, you have your services, internal, external, the client microservices and the enterprise microservice layers. And then at the bottom you have your core. This is where your applications are. And then you have the governance and the security and the culture that underpins all of that. The reason we went through this was that if you only fix the presentation layer, they tell you you have digital lipstick. Because the core is not ready to support what you're doing at the top. So you need to make sure your core has the capability and the capacity to meet the changes that are required at the presentation layer. We need to build a digital ecosystem, which means I must be able to interact with vendors, with partners, whenever I need to. So I don't have to build everything myself. So in the integration layer, I provide services that can be utilized by vendors so that we're able to give the customer an experience that includes not just the NCB components and what I can do internally, but I have the ability to integrate with external parties and provide the customer a seamless experience. Now that is when you really start to get up on the digital agenda. And I also use the cruise frequently at NCB. When I went on a cruise with my wife, I don't like water, right? But unfortunately, wives get you to do things. But we went on to one site. I was able to book the cruise on the site. I was able to book the insurance on the same site. I was able to book the excursions for the places we were stopping on the site. And I was able to pay for everything on the same site. To date, I don't know who offered me the insurance because all I saw was the insurance on the site where the cruise was. But they were able to log into the insurance company, etc., the excursions, and make the arrangement. Now, if I had to go to all of those sites, and when I go to the insurance, I have to ask, do you cover the cruise for this? No, everything at the same place. This is where we're striving to be in our own journey. Now, we have utilized OmniFlow predominantly in our organization as part of this experience. If you notice in this architecture, it mirrors my house. So they sit at the core because we keep them in our core, but they help us to deliver the experience. So our loan operations, where the customer is interacting, they're able to benefit from the features, the functionality, the strength, the flexibility of the OmniFlow application or platform that sits at the bottom. And this is where you now start to add value. So as you look at the application, it's how you integrate it in your operations, because we all have the same application, but how do we utilize it? That's where you start to get value. And one of the things that we always say is have your own journey. Don't try to have the NCB journey or the Amazon journey. Look at where you are. We know where you know where you have to go. Plan your own roadmap, because that way you can deliver a consistent experience based upon your strengths, the weaknesses that you have. Lessons learned, you have learned these somewhere in some project, but it's the same thing that we have. I'll go to just about 2 or 3 of them. Always have the customer at the forefront of your expectations, because we're very good at building solutions and applications that work for us, for the staff, and the customer has no clue what it is. So in part of our digital journey, we have been able to go out on the road with applications while we're building them and hand them to customers in the incomplete state and say, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think? What changes would you like? Would you use this? Do you like the color scheme? As simple as that. Do you want the button to move from the left to the right? So they feel a part of the journey, and we find that that improvement helps the final product, and that's part of being agile. Start small, right? Don't believe you have to end everything the first day, and don't believe that the first delivery is going to be perfect. It may not be. So you have to be able to start small, do pilots, have quick wins, because that gives you the opportunity to move ahead. One last thing I'll say is trust the people that you have given the responsibility to lead your digital journey. So when we look at giving them autonomy in the labs to say, we need to build a mobile app. Persons like myself who previously would have made the decision as to the color, everything, they would come to your office, this is what we're building. That's a thing of the past. We have to trust them that if they put it red, even though I want it blue, you have to smile when they come and say, lovely, and then you go and cry in the silence, right? But you have to have the ability to trust them and allow them to build, utilize their initiative, and that is how you get a brilliant product. And time for questions. Since it's lunchtime, I assume there are no questions. It was, All right, do we have time for questions? Okay. Yes. All right, yes. So what we found is that was an area we're very weak in. So we went out and we found a partner who helped us to redesign our website. We now have them integrated in the labs. We are now training locally for persons to develop that skill. So if we go back to, well, I don't know how to go back on this, but so if we go back to our presentation layer, right? Our UI UX is in that area. So Newgen is in our core. So from our perspective, we're not building it in their solution. We're delivering it across all the channels, because remember, in my house, you had the branch, you had the kiosk, you had the ABM, you have web, you have mobile. UI UX is at that layer. So we fix that, we integrate with Newgen in the back end. Because what it does is that because we have reusable components, we will plug into Newgen from any channel that we're coming in. But where the customer is interacting with the bank is simply, this is my interface, this is what I see. They don't care about OmniFlow. That's my responsibility in the back end. So we just keep the UI UX at the presentation layer. We took a phased approach. So our first step was to fix the infrastructure. So we built our own private cloud. We ripped out all the servers, etc. We completed that as phase one. Phase two then said, let us look at the application set. So we took it from the position of business lines by business line, because we have several different companies. So we started with payments. So we did all the changes in the applications that are there, so we changed them. Now we're working on the retail banking sector segment, so we'll be finished with that in April of next year. So that's the approach we're taking, because we couldn't do all the business lines, so we are doing it in a phased approach. Now, if your company can afford to do all of them simultaneously, then that's your path. But we just took a phased approach, but it's a lot of work, and we call it digitizing the core, which means that I not only change the application, I change the way I use the application, I change the way the people who support it interact with the application. My support model changes. I have an 8-to-5 workforce. We now have to move to a 24/7 workforce. So all of that is part of digitizing the core. So that's why I keep always stepping back from the technology. It's not only a technology change, it's a full change, because you can buy the new application and end up where you were before. It's significant. All right. Thank you very much.